My sister attacked me and stole my boyfriend 6 years ago. Now my parents are trying to reconcile us. My sister, who's 26 and I 28, haven't spoken in about 6 years. This all stems from a horrific incident I'm about to describe. Growing up, my parents oddly encouraged a fierce sibling rivalry between us. Looking back, I realize this wasn't a smart move. It fueled a deep envy, and perhaps our relationship would have been better if they'd addressed it sooner. When we were kids, we could occasionally put our differences aside, but as we got older, our animosity grew. By high school, we barely spoke, and honestly, we preferred it that way. After that, I left for college and only saw my sister when I came home, which was a relief from constant tension. I started dating my fiancé around my graduation. After 3 years of friendship, he finally worked up the courage to ask me out before I left college. I said yes, thrilled because I felt the same way. We moved in together after I graduated. 3 months into our relationship, I brought him home for dinner to introduce him to my parents. Coincidentally, my sister, who had just started college, also decided to spend that weekend at home. It was a recipe for disaster from the start at that point. My life was going great. I had a wonderful boyfriend, a career, and my own apartment. My sister, on the other hand, wasn't doing as well. She was upset about having to settle for her second-choice college after not getting into her top pick. My parents later told me she was struggling to make friends, which explained why she was home so often. I could immediately tell my sister wasn't happy when I introduced my boyfriend. She pouted in the background. Despite my boyfriend knowing about our strained relationship, I introduced them. As I did, she immediately turned on the charm. Felt strange and I tried to ignore it, but then things got even weirder. My sister became overly interested in my boyfriend's life, constantly trying to engage him in conversation as we all sat around. We were both uneasy, but we stayed quiet. Then she crossed a line. She started openly flirting with him in front of me throughout dinner, completely unashamed. It was clearly to provoke me. I tried to ignore it for a while, not wanting my boyfriend to see how dysfunctional my family was, but I reached my breaking point. It was my boyfriend. So I lost my temper and told my sister to stop, saying her behavior was disgusting. She just rolled her eyes and kept talking to him, snapped, yelling that he was my guest and she needed to show him respect as she was making him uncomfortable. She then said something that really infuriated me. He deserves better. It was as if she was helping him see other options. We started cursing at each other. Since she wasn't doing as well as me, I called her a loser and said she was resentful. That comment clearly hit a nerve. She lunged across the table, grabbed my hair, and slapped me. We hadn't had a physical fight since middle school, so I was initially too surprised to react. But it quickly escalated into a full-blown brawl. We were so violent that my boyfriend and parents had to pull us apart. Even though we were both hurt and scratched, we kept yelling. My boyfriend was the one who pulled me away, got me into the car, and drove us home, reassuring me the whole time. That conflict could have gone on much longer if he hadn't been there, so I was incredibly grateful. After this episode, I completely cut off contact with my sister. We'd fought before, but it had never been this vicious. For me, it was the final straw, especially since I was already living apart from her. I honestly no longer felt compelled to consider her family. The day after, my parents called to say they had reprimanded my sister and hoped we could work things out, even though she wasn't ready to apologize. I told them I had no interest in resolving anything. I wanted nothing to do with her, and our relationship would remain estranged. They tried to convince me otherwise, but I reminded them they shared some of the blame. They had never acknowledged, and had even fostered our fierce sibling rivalry since we were kids. So they couldn't be surprised we didn't want to be together. We argued because they disagreed with me. A few days later, they apologized over the phone and admitted their mistake. It felt a bit hollow at the time, but I forgave them. Even though I had decided not to speak to my sister, I didn't want to cut ties with my parents. It's been 6 years since then, and I haven't spoken to my sister. But as long as they don't pressure me to make amends, I don't mind that my parents and she have a normal relationship. We rarely talk, and I've seen her at family gatherings, but we avoid each other, even on holidays, and I like it that way. We don't get along, and everyone in the family knows it, though no one understands why. They only know we had a fight. I haven't changed anything because neither of us looked good after it. I kept the full story from my family for over 6 years. But I finally revealed the truth at my bridal shower. Besides my bridesmaids and maid of honor, I'd only invited close relatives and friends. My fiancée was also there, as we weren't sticking to the tradition of inviting only women. I wanted everyone I cared about to be there. Nevertheless, my parents chose to invite my estranged sister too. Honestly, I have no idea what they were thinking, but I was shocked when they walked in with her. To my surprise, my sister looked just as shocked to see me. When they entered, the room went quiet, and there was a palpable standoff. After what felt like forever, my parents approached us both. They said a lot had changed in the 6 years since the incident, and they expected us to make amends, believing we were older and more mature. My sister's face made it clear she'd been tricked by our parents to get her there. Before she could say anything, I informed my parents they had no right to do this on such a significant day for me. Gently asked them to leave with my sister. My parents wouldn't leave, so I tried to maintain my dignity and not ruin the occasion. They advised me to move on from the past, as if nothing significant had happened and it would be simple for me to do so, which annoyed me. I reenacted the entire episode to refresh their memories and make sure everyone else knew exactly what had happened 6 years prior. Then I asked if anyone in the room felt I could simply let go of this. If I had married someone else, it would have been different, but I was marrying the same man with whom my sister had openly flirted when I first brought him home to meet the family. She had shamelessly done it in front of me, treating him like he was a prize in a competition he hadn't agreed to. And on top of all that, she attacked me simply because I called her out and labeled her a loser. I had never had someone try to physically harm me like that before, so it was traumatic. Despite everything, she acted as if nothing had happened and never apologized to me in the past 6 years. I didn't feel obligated to forgive her or move on. I never let someone like her back into my life because I felt it was more important to hold on to the past. My parents' assumption that they could just bring her to my bridal shower and expect us to comply was absurd. Fortunately, my sister seemed to realize her mistake and left before my parents could argue much further. My mother followed her, presumably to appease her, as I assumed she wasn't pleased about being misled either. My father stayed with me for a short while, but I told him that since he had disappointed me, I didn't want to talk to him just then. He became irritated, accusing me of being irrational and acting like a brat, claiming it made no sense to hold on to something that happened 6 years prior. Although I didn't think I was being a brat, I told him to go since I didn't want to argue. He also left after a few minutes. After that, I was so overwhelmed that I had to take a few minutes to gather myself. Fortunately, my fiancée and maid of honor supported me, and after a little while I was back to my usual self. Everyone else cooperated, seeing that I needed a distraction and didn't want to think about my sister or dad. And we resumed the celebration as if nothing had happened. After the encounter, my fiancé and I went home and didn't discuss the situation further. I was okay with the fact that I hadn't heard from my parents since this incident, which occurred about 5 days ago. I felt we should spend some time apart after what they did. Although I didn't anticipate hearing from them right away, they did, and not to offer an apology, but rather to hold me responsible for my sister's predicament. My mother called me this morning. As soon as I answered, she instructed me to contact my aunt and ensure she offered my sister the position she had been discussing. I urged my mother to calm down, as she seemed agitated and panicked, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on to explain that my sister had been out of work for about 6 months due to layoffs and downsizing at her previous employer. She had to move back in with our parents a few weeks ago after realizing she could no longer afford her rent. She had been searching for a job but hadn't been able to find one she liked or that paid enough. My mother had discussed this with my aunt, who was launching a new company. Since my sister had been working in marketing before, my aunt had initially chosen to appoint her as head of marketing. However, my aunt stopped replying and eventually revoked the invitation following the bridal shower episode, where I told her what had transpired 6 years prior. Since I had always been my aunt's favorite, I didn't find it unexpected, and I believed it to be a plausible explanation. When my mother forwarded the message my aunt had sent her, my aunt stated in her reply that it was evident my sister had severe anger management problems based on her understanding of the incident I described. My aunt wasn't pleased that she hadn't even offered an apology, not even during the bridal shower. Furthermore, my aunt stated that she had initially chosen to hire my sister because she was related, but that she had interviewed a more competent applicant for the job a few weeks prior. She would now offer the position to the more competent applicant, having changed her mind. That seemed totally reasonable to me. I was genuinely glad my aunt had a change of heart. I informed my mother that I couldn't do anything about it after reading her message. As someone who has seen the negative effects of nepotism in the workplace, I didn't want my aunt to be the type of person who makes things worse. Otherwise, my sister would have been employed because of nepotism. The real reason my sister wasn't hired was that it appeared my aunt had discovered someone more suitable for the position. Since this was my aunt's business and I didn't want to cross any lines, I informed her I wouldn't talk to her in an attempt to destroy my sister's reputation in front of the family. My mother began to lose her head and started screaming at me. Since I hadn't discussed the issue in years, she suggested I didn't need to bring it up during my bridal shower. Even though I had started the argument by calling my sister a loser, especially knowing it would hit her where it hurt, she thought. I purposefully painted her as unstable and nasty in order to garner the family's sympathy, make myself appear to be the nice guy. For the record, I wasn't hiding anything when I recounted the incident. I had stated that I had labeled her a loser prior to her attack, and yet, I don't believe that calling her derogatory names excused her physical altercation. It was just unfair for my mother to say that I brought up the incident in order to harm my sister's reputation. I blocked my parents and hung up after giving it some thought. I'm not sure if discussing the incident was a wise decision. My mother said over the phone that I hadn't given my sister a chance, despite the fact that she had evolved over the years. That was pretty rude of me, she said. I brought up my sister's attack on me 6 years ago, which resulted in her losing a job offer. Am I correct in bringing this up? Update 1. Hey Reddit, before I discuss the events that followed my initial post, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who took the time to leave a comment. I really appreciate your kind words and suggestions. So let's talk about what happened after I blocked my parents. Since my sister had been blocked for the previous 6 years, my parents couldn't reach me. They decided to come see me, as they had no other way to get in touch. Honestly, I really don't have time to deal with all of this. I'm getting married in a few weeks. I already have a lot on my plate. Since I had just returned from work, and my fiancé and I needed to leave right away for a last-minute wedding dress fitting, I told them to leave when they arrived. We were about to go, but they had arrived at the wrong time, and I knew that if we opened the door, they would find a way to keep talking and annoy me. They didn't go even after I threatened to call the police. To be honest, I didn't want to call the police since I thought it would be excessive. I didn't want to be the type of person who calls the police for everything. After speaking with my fiancé, we agreed to let them in, give them a quick listen, and then leave. After making up our minds, we invited them inside, opened the door, and told them to hurry up because we had other places to be. Fortunately, my folks didn't mince words. They said that my aunt had withdrawn her offer to hire my sister due to my actions at my bridal shower. They insisted that I talk to my aunt and make sure my sister found employment because, in their theory, I was at fault. I didn't want to repeat myself because it was the same argument. I informed them that I couldn't do anything about it because I had already spoken to my mother about it over the phone. They knew I was busy, and I'm getting married in a few weeks. So, it seemed pointless to come to my place and discuss it again. My sister then cut me off. It came for other reasons, she claimed, besides the job offer. I was taken aback by that, as it was our first conversation in 6 years. She went on to tell me that it was really because of her that they were there. She felt compelled to apologize to me. Since I'm still unsure of how I felt at the time, I truly don't know what to say to you all, since I clearly don't trust her. I had serious doubts about her intentions. I chose to be direct with her as a result. I questioned if she truly wanted to apologize, or if she was just there to do so because she believed I could help her land the job. I informed her that I couldn't help her. Therefore, there was no use in wasting her breath if it was only about the job. She appeared a little taken aback by my candor, but she was able to explain that she had come to apologize, and that our parents were there to discuss the job. It was obvious they hadn't talked about this because even my parents appeared astonished when I looked at them. My sister, though, seemed unconcerned. She said that she was merely there to apologize and had no interest in the position. Over the previous 6 years, she had given her actions against me a lot of thought. But she had always found a reason not to say sorry. However, she was unable to deny the reality that she had mistreated me after the bridal shower. My fiancé and I were still having a hard time processing everything. But I could tell she was serious based on her tone and conduct. She informed me that she had been resentful of me since she was a child because she felt like she had to compete with me. Since nothing mattered in the real world, she understood that she had wasted her entire youth and adolescence competing with me. She felt bad about it because we could have been friends, especially because I had made multiple attempts to be her buddy. She acknowledged that she had pushed me away because she always thought of me as a rival. I had felt the same way, so hearing her utter all of it was crazy. I'm embarrassed to say that as she related her story, I began to cry. After that, she spoke to my fiancé and expressed regret for the way she had treated him during their one and only encounter. She acknowledged that the apology was long overdue and that she had been so preoccupied with defeating me that she had failed to recognize the type of person she had become. She didn't wait for our response once she was done. She merely stated that we didn't have to pardon her. She only wanted to get it out. And now that she had, she would stop bothering. US, my parents, my fiancé, and I were the only people left in the room when she left. Since none of us had anticipated it, we were all sitting in awe, trying to comprehend what had just transpired. My fiancé and I went out for my fitting after my parents eventually left without a word. We didn't talk about any of it until we got home. We only began discussing my sister's remarks approximately 30 minutes ago. Even though it took her 6 years, I felt that her apology was extraordinarily mature. She meant every word based on her actions. My fiancé and I are currently debating whether or not to forgive her. Since we haven't even finished processing it, it's too soon to tell. We're tempted to get in touch with her later and express our forgiveness. I need more time before I can reassure her that everything is fine, even though I've already unblocked her. Even though it took her many years to realize we could have been friends, that is something I'm truly happy about. Update to hello. Just realized that in my previous update, I neglected to express what I intended to do in relation to my parents. To be honest, I forgot about it because I was so preoccupied with my sister's predicament. In any case, my folks haven't gotten in touch with us since our previous visit a few days ago. We're going to keep avoiding them because I don't think they're sorry for anything. The way my sister and I ended up is one of the many things I hold. My parents responsible for... They still had the opportunity to be better parents, but they blew it. They have consistently made it all but impossible for me to maintain them in my life, despite my best efforts. We've fought and argued a lot over the last 6 years, and I've always tried to forgive them, but I'm at a loss now. People who obviously don't care about my feelings, or even my sister's, if I'm being honest, can't continue to be excused. In the end, we won't communicate with them, and I doubt they'll come to my wedding. However, my fiancé and I want to get in touch with them in a few days to inform them that they are no longer invited to the wedding, just to be safe. Update 3. Hello, everyone. Last week, I got married. Everything was lovely and fantastic. Exactly. As I had envisioned, and I had a great time. My parents were not present, as was to be expected. My spouse and I didn't even have to contact them. They informed me via email that there had been a huge mistake and that they would not be attending. They said my sister and I had begun to demonize them, and that they didn't need to be reminded that we blamed them for the tense relationship. They said that despite their best efforts to be excellent parents to us, they now intend to take some time off and live their separate lives without worrying about their daughters because we don't value their presence in our lives. I mean, if that's what they want, I'm okay with it. Happier news. A few days after I published my most recent update, I contacted my sister. I told her that I would love for her to attend my wedding and that I accepted her apology. It was a very joyful day, and she kindly accepted my invitation and attended the wedding. It's absurd to think that I would have scoffed at my parents a few months ago if they had informed me that my sister would attend my wedding instead of them. But now, we are here. In any case, I'm glad everything went without a hitch and that I'm at last getting back on track with my sister. This is sufficient for me for the time being, but perhaps my parents will change their minds and apologize to us. Life has never been better, and my husband and I will soon be departing for our honeymoon. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.